I want to start today with a bit of a paradox. It's something I came across in the research we're covering, and honestly, it made me stop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, put the tablet down and just stare at the window for a minute. It's one of those things that's so obvious once you say it, but you don't realize how much it's running your life until then.
Always a good sign when the research stops you cold. So what was it?
Well, if you think about it, we spend our entire lives, basically from the moment we start school, being trained to avoid this one specific thing.
Hmm.
It's the only universal human experience that we treat like it's some sort of contagious disease. We hide it, we lie about it, we fear it more than almost anything. And yet, it's the one thing that actually builds us.
You're talking about failure.
I am talking about failure, but
Yeah.
and I want to be really clear about this. We are not talking about the sanitized version. You know the kind, right, the LinkedIn post version.
Oh, absolutely. The humble brag failure.
Mhm.
I worked too hard. I cared too much.
Yes. And now I'm back and better than ever.
That's the story you tell at a dinner party, like 5 years later, where everyone says, oh, it was meant to be.
That's the Disney version. It's safe because it's already over.
Exactly. Today, we are digging into the raw stuff. The source material for this deep dive calls it the alchemy of failure. And it focuses on that specific gut punch moment when the floor just falls out from under you.
The moment where it definitely does not feel like a learning opportunity.
Not at all. It's the 3 a.m. moment. You're
Yeah.
just staring at the ceiling, your heart is hammering, and you're literally recalculating your entire existence because a job vanished or a business died.
Or a relationship imploded.
Right. It feels like the end of the world.
It's interesting you use that phrase because biologically, that is exactly what your body thinks is happening.
That's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack how you take that moment, the actual wreckage, and turn it into a strategic advantage.
I know, that sounds like a cheesy motivational poster.
Let's turn that frown upside down.
But the research here is surprisingly technical. It goes from the neurology of why failure physically hurts to, a really practical method for reframing it.
And what I love about this source is that it isn't just positive thinking. It's biology and it's strategy. We're looking at how to hijack your own brain's reaction to disaster.
To go from being a passenger to being the pilot.
That's it, exactly.
So let's start with the pain itself, because we all felt it, but I've never really looked at the mechanics of it. The source describes that physical sensation as stomach in your throat.
It's a very evocative description. They compare it to that split second when an elevator, drops unexpectedly.
Ugh, which is terrifying. I hate that feeling.
We all do. But here's the problem. In an elevator, that lurch lasts maybe half a second. Then the brakes kick in, you stabilize. In a real crisis, that physiological state, that drop, can last for days or weeks.
So what is actually happening in our bodies? Why does losing a client feel like I'm being hunted by a predator?
It's because your hardware it's outdated. To understand failure, you have to look at the brain, and specifically the amygdala.
Okay.
This is your brain's threat detection system. And the amygdala has a pretty significant design flaw. It lacks nuance. It can't distinguish between, I just lost my biggest client, and there's a saber-toothed tiger at the cave entrance.
So to my brain, financial loss registers the same as imminent death.
Exactly. It registers as a full-blown existential threat. So your body just dumps cortisol and adrenaline into your system to get you ready to fight.
Okay, that makes sense.
But here is the really critical part, and this explains why we make such terrible decisions when we're panicking. When the amygdala fires up like that, it effectively unplugs the prefrontal cortex.
And the prefrontal cortex is the CEO of the brain, sort of.
Ideally, yes. It's the part that's responsible for rational thinking, future planning.
All the high-level stuff.
All the complex problem-solving perspectives, the part of you that knows how to read a balance sheet or have a difficult conversation.
So just to get this straight, I'm staring at a spreadsheet that's all red. My body is physically prepping to fight a tiger. And the part of my brain that's supposed to come up with a solution has just gone offline.
It has left the building. The research calls this state cognitive blindness.
Cognitive blindness. That feels incredibly accurate, but what does that actually look like? Is it just that I can't think of a good idea?
It's a bit worse than that. Because of that neurochemistry, your brain literally shuts down the machinery that sees alternative paths. It wants to keep you safe.
Right.
And in a prehistoric context, safe meant freezing or hiding. It did not mean uh, brainstorming a pivot to a new market. So
Yeah.
your brain just tries to keep you small.
It puts blinders on you.
Correct. It tells you this failure is a dead end because it isn't capable of analyzing the situation properly. It's giving you ancient threat-based information, not accurate analysis.
That explains so much. It explains why when you're in that hole, you genuinely believe there is no way out. It's not pessimism. Your brain is actively hiding the exit signs from you.
It's masking the very data that would help you.
Okay, so that's the biology. We're basically chemically impaired when we fail. Which brings us to the case study in our source material. And I have to say, reading this one, it hurt.
It's a tough read, isn't it? Because it feels so preventable in hindsight, but just so inevitable in the moment.
Walk us through the setup. This isn't some huge corporation.
No, it's a personal story. We're looking at a founder who spent, I think it was about 18 months, building a specialized consulting practice. The focus was organizational transformation.
And it seems like they were doing everything right.
Seemingly, yeah. Clients were lined up, the infrastructure was built, office space, staff, the works. It was that dream scenario, that momentum phase where everything just feels easy.
And then
The crash. They had one anchor client, a massive tech firm. This one client represented about 60% of their total revenue.
oof, I know where this is going. It makes me anxious just hearing it.
Right. Overnight, the client pulls out. There was a leadership change, budgets were reallocated, and boom,
Yep.
contract terminated. No notice, no negotiation, just gone.
60% of your income vanishes in a single email.
Exactly. So just imagine that moment. You're sitting in an office you can no longer afford. Payroll is in 3 days. And you're looking at a business plan that is now completely useless.
And because of that cognitive blindness we just talked about, the immediate reaction isn't, okay, let's fix this. It's, I'm a fraud.
The internal monologue just gets vicious. Who is I to think I could do this? I'm an idiot. Everyone is going to laugh.
Yeah.
That is the amygdala talking. You're in the tunnel, and the walls are made of your own fear.
So this is where it gets really interesting for me, because most people, myself included, probably stop there. I think I'd just curl up under the desk. We retreat. We go back to a safe job we hate.
Right.
But the whole concept here is psychological alchemy. But I have to be the skeptic for a second. His business just evaporated. He's panicking. His brain is offline. How do you actually break out of that tunnel?
You're right. You can't just wish it away. You can't logic your way out of a chemical reaction. You need a tool, a wedge, to pry the door open. And psychological alchemy is about that deliberate transformation of, base experience, the lead into refined understanding, the gold.
Okay.
But to start that process, the source suggests you have to ask one very specific, very counterintuitive question.
What is it? What's the magic question?
The question is, what does this failure teach me that success never could?
Huh. What does this failure teach me that success never could?
Notice the shift. It's subtle, but it's profound. Most people, when they fail, they ask why, right? Why me? Why did this happen?
Which immediately puts you in the role of the victim.
Exactly. Why looks backward. It's passive. You are the victim of the event. But asking, what does this teach me, forces you to become active. You shift from being a victim to being a researcher.
A researcher. I really like that distinction.
You're no longer the person the bad thing happened to. You're the person interrogating the event to extract intelligence. You're trying to strip the emotion away just to find the data.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate. Is that just a mind trick? I mean, he's still broke. His business is still dead. Does asking that question actually change the material outcome?
It changes your perception of the outcome, which changes your next action. It re-engages the prefrontal cortex because now you have a puzzle to solve, not a threat to run from. Let's go back to our consultant.
Right.
He's sitting there, 60% of his revenue is gone. If he stays in Hamoy Me, he probably just folds the company. But he didn't. He forced himself to ask that question.
And what was the answer? What did the wreckage actually tell him?
The revelation was painful. The failure showed him that the entire business was built on a single point of failure, that one anchor client.
Which seems so obvious in hindsight. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's business 101.
It is obvious in hindsight. But, and this is the key, when you're succeeding, you don't see it. Success is a terrible teacher. It acts like a heavy concealer, just hides all the cracks. The source calls this catastrophic fragility.
So if that client hadn't pulled out then?
He would have just kept building on that faulty foundation.
Yeah.
He would have hired more staff, gotten more office space.
And the eventual collapse would have been 10 times bigger.
It would have been a bankruptcy, not just a setback. So the failure provided data that success was actively concealing from him.
So in a really strange, twisted way, the failure actually saved them.
It did. And the alchemy here is realizing the failure wasn't the worst thing that ever happened. It was valuable market research.
Yeah.
The failure stopped being a wall and it became raw material.
Raw material. I love that phrase. It implies the wreckage isn't just debris to sweep away. It's bricks. You can build something with it.
Precisely. And that's exactly what the consultant did. He didn't just patch the hole. He raised the whole structure and rebuilt it based on the data the failure gave him.
So what did that look like? Did he just go find another big client to replace the first one?
No, because he'd learned the lesson. He designed the new business for resilience. He stopped chasing the big whale clients. He started targeting smaller, diversified contracts across different industries.
So if one sector crashed, the others would hold.
Exactly. And he created retainer structures to prevent overdependence. The business that emerged from those ashes was objectively stronger than the one that burned down.
Because it was battle-tested. It wasn't just a theory anymore.
And this brings us to another great concept from the source material, which is the idea of scar tissue wisdom.
Scar tissue wisdom sounds like a heavy metal album.
A little bit, yeah. But think about it. When that consultant went out to pitch new clients after the rebuild, he had something he didn't have before. He could talk to them about organizational fragility, about the dangers of a single point of failure from lived experience.
It wasn't theory. He wasn't quoting some textbook.
No, it was his reality. And clients can smell the difference. That credibility, you can't manufacture it. You can't learn it in a seminar. The scars literally became his armor. They became a competitive advantage.
It's interesting because we always look at people who've had these perfect careers, you know, the ones who just glide from success to success, and we envy them. But this suggests they're actually at a disadvantage.
It's the myth of the frictionless trajectory. We assume that never failing is the goal. But if you've never failed, you lack the knowledge of how to navigate when things inevitably go wrong.
You've never been tested. You don't know if the airbag works because you've never actually hit a wall.
Exactly. You lack what the source calls psychological musculature. It's like a muscle that's never lifted a heavy weight. So the first time adversity hits, it hits everyone. That person with a frictionless trajectory often just crumbles.
They have no reference point for survival.
None. They panic because for them, it really is the end of the world. It's the difference between reading a book on crisis management and actually managing a crisis.
That's such a good point.
The person who has failed and analyzed it has a data set the perfect success story just doesn't have. Frame every failure as competitive infrastructure. Every time you fall and get back up, you're conducting R&D on your own resilience.
You're collecting proprietary intelligence about how systems break.
And how to fix them. It's yours. No one can take that lesson away from you because you paid for it with your own pain.
And that payment buys you a strategic shift in how you operate from then on.
This is the final piece of the puzzle, really. Once you realize failure is just information, it completely changes your risk calculus.
How so? Because my gut reaction would be if I failed big, I'd be more scared to try again.
Initially, yes. But think long term. If failure is part of your identity, if failing means I am a failure, then you will avoid risk at all costs. You'll play it safe. But if failure is just information, if it's just raw material, then the fear of falling diminishes.
Because you know you can survive the fall. You've done it before.
You know that if you fall, you'll just get up, you'll extract the lesson, and you will build something better.
So you can take bigger swings.
You can take much bigger swings because you know what's on the other side of the fall.
Ah.
You aren't guessing anymore. You've been there.
This reminds me of the distinction the Source makes between being a passenger and a pilot.
That's the ultimate transformation. A passenger is controlled by events. The economy crashes, they panic. The client leaves, they crumble.
They're just strapped in, hoping for the best.
Right. But a pilot controls what is done with the events. Turbulence hits, the pilot adjusts the altitude. The pilot uses their instrumentation, which in this analogy is your scar tissue, your experience, to navigate through the storm.
Your scars become your navigation system.
They really do. The broken places become your strongest points. And that's why the goal isn't to avoid failure. The goal is to get better at metabolizing it, to process it faster.
It's about shortening that recovery period. Instead of wallowing for 6 months, you wallow for 6 days or maybe 6 hours.
And eventually, maybe just 6 minutes. You feel the punch, you acknowledge the pain, because it still hurts, we're not robots. But then you immediately start looking for the raw material. You start looking for the bricks.
So let's bring this home for everyone listening. We've covered a lot today, from the amygdala hijacking your brain to becoming a researcher, all the way to scar tissue wisdom. What's the main takeaway?
I think the summary is simple, but it's challenging. We have to stop denying that failure hurts. It hurts. It's awful. But we have to refuse to let the hurt be the end of the story. The source material ends with a provocation that I think is really worth repeating.
Let's hear it.
When the next setback inevitably comes, and it will come, you have a choice, a binary choice. You could look at the wreckage and see a dead end, or you could look at the wreckage and see raw material.
And if you see raw material?
If you see raw material, you're already ahead of everyone else who's still stuck in that tunnel. You are already building the next thing. You're already winning, even while you're failing.
I love that. It's not about toxic positivity. It's about strategic utility. What can I build with this?
Precisely. It turns the worst day of your career into the first day of your next success.
Well, that is a lot to think about. I know I'm going to be looking at my own past failures a little differently after this.
It changes the view, doesn't it?
It really does. For everyone listening, take a moment today to think about a failure you're still carrying around. Maybe it's not just a memory. Maybe it's a brick you haven't used yet. Your move, universe. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.